Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Witches of the Moon. I'm your Friday hostess, Natalie. This week's topic is herbs for dream magic. So before I get into that, I want to let you guys know, I know that some of the videos from some of our hosts have been pretty sporadic, and I didn't want to say anything that was going to give away any personal information, but I do feel that you as our viewers deserve an explanation as to the sporadic nature of some of the videos. Just to let you know that our Monday and Tuesday hosts have been dealing with some issues and doing some traveling and some other stuff that has kind of made them unable to post videos. I do apologize. I know here lately it's been just Houston and Dia and myself, and hopefully Quentin and Alora can resolve their issues. Alora's in school, so that takes up a lot of time for those of you that know. But I did want to let you guys know that we haven't been forgotten. They are still with the channel. They just have been dealing with some things that have made it to where they cannot post videos. And I just want to give you, our viewers, a little bit of an explanation about that and an apology. Now back to the topic at hand. This week's topic is herbs used for dream magic. And trying to decide how I want to organize this video, because this is going to lead directly into the topic that I'm covering for the Share a Spell week, and I don't want to give too much away about that yet because I kind of want it to be a little bit of a surprise what I'm going to be covering in Share a Spell week, because what I'm going to be covering isn't exactly a spell per se, but it can be used in dream magic or meditation work, and so I want to leave it there. But when you're talking about herbs that you're using for dream magic, astral travel, meditation, divination, that sort of thing, that's really what the topic is about, not just dream magic. I'm checking my list here. You have a lot of options. Some of those options are considered baneful herbs, meaning they should not be ingested. Do not ingest under any circumstances, okay? We don't want to be responsible for any illnesses or deaths, which can occur with some of these. Some of these are toxic even to touch. So you want to be very careful in dealing with some of these herbs. A lot of these herbs are used by people when they're making certain concoctions to use in meditation or astral travel. A lot of people burn them. There's a lot of safe ways to use these herbs that don't require any kind of ingestion or contact with the herb itself, unless you're going to mix it with something, and then you probably want to use gloves with some of them. But I'm going to talk about the baneful herbs a little bit and then talk about the non-baneful herbs. Now, everybody who has a grimoire should have in their little grimoire a page for herbs of this nature, because meditation, astral travel, and divination are three things that are very, very, very important to those who practice the craft. Now, this happens to be my little page for that. I have a couple of pages for it, actually, and as you can see, I've got some pages I haven't added to my book yet. They're just sort of sitting in there. But this was a great little list that I got, and normally I try to source where I got this page from, but I did not, so I apologize. But I loved the little illustration with the little paper bag and that kind of thing. Now, this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but there are several that are used that are poisonous that I want to cover first. That would be aconite, also known as monkshood, wolfsbane, that sort of thing. And she actually lists aconite and monkshood on here separately, but they are the same thing. Henbane, belladonna, mistletoe, and there was another one that was on here. Oh, mandrake, of course, mandrake. There are others. Datura is another one, which actually Datura may be one of these that I've already mentioned. Sometimes I get the known name with the scientific name mixed up, so if that's the case. But Datura is another one that I know is used. I believe that comes from foxglove. I think foxglove is the actual plant, and it's a beautiful flower. But those are poisonous. So if you are using those in an incense or in something like that, do not inhale directly your incense, and do not ingest it in any way, like in a tea or so forth. There are others that you can use safely, and a lot of times those are used topically, or they are put into a tea. They're used in an incense, like a loose incense that you would just drop on coals. Some people make cone incenses out of them and use these herbs. And that would be things like mugwort, I know is a very well-known one. St. John's wort is nice. And I use St. John's wort in tea. I actually put St. John's wort in my coffee when I brew it because my husband has such problems with depression and that kind of thing. And St. John's wort is one of those herbs that's known to help with that. Now, anytime you are ingesting an herb of any kind that you are mixing yourself, please be very, very cautious. Even if it's an herb that doesn't typically have what are considered negative side effects, it's not poisonous. Herbs are still things that can affect your health, and it can affect you if you are taking certain medications. So please, 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 by all means, talk with your doctor before you do any of this, especially if you're on any kind of regular medication, antidepressants, MOIDs, NSAIDs, things like that. Just be very cautious and talk about it with your doctor before you start taking any kind of supplement or making your own teas out of herbs that may affect your mood, such as St. John's wort. Peppermint's a good one, verbena, yarrow, vervain. I use cinquefoil. That's another one that's used. And in fact, I don't have the book here because I've moved all of my witchy books to my office where I was filming these videos, but of late it's just been easier to do it here. But if you have Scott Cunningham's Oils, Incenses, and Brews book, which I have a copy of, he has a couple of recipes in there. And in fact, now that I think about it, I may have them in here. I'll cover that better during the Share Spell Week. How's that? Where he talks about using cinquefoil. Camphor is another good one. Hops, clove, holly, lemon verbena, purslane, sandalwood. I use a lot of sandalwood. I use a lot of dragon's blood, wormwood, which I would be careful with wormwood because I think in some cases wormwood is considered poisonous too. In fact, I think that is the herb. I'm pretty sure wormwood is the herb that's used in it's an alcoholic drink that's actually absinthe. Absinthe. I'm pretty sure wormwood is the herb that's used to make absinthe. And absinthe, yeah. Agrimony, cinnamon, cloves, hops, celandine, cowbane, which is poisonous, adder's tongue. All of those are things that are good for that. Now, why are some of these herbs good for those sorts of things? Let's talk about that a little bit, because not every herb is good for meditation or astral travel. We select herbs for a certain reason. Now, if you're feeling a calling or a need to use a certain herb, use it. By all means, don't think that this list is exhaustive. Don't think that it's something that you can't use just because I haven't mentioned it here. But I will tell you that over the years, certain herbs have been passed down as being good for this or being good for that. They have this medicinal value, that medicinal value. Excuse me one moment. You two need to knock it off. If you knock that computer off that table, you're going to have some hell to pay. You understand me? Okay, thank you. The dogs. So, in any case, as I was saying, be cautious if you're going to be ingesting anything. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're not ingesting anything that could be bad for your health. So if you're on medications or things like that, please, please, please check with your doctor before you do ingest any of these. But like I said, you can use them in a talisman. You can put them in a pouch and hold them. You can set them in front of you. You can use it as a loose incense. You can make have a locket, get a locket and put some of the herbs in a locket and keep it, or a small vial and wear it. I've seen that where they put them in tiny little vials that are used for necklaces, and you can carry those herbs with you and absorb their energies that way without having to ingest, touch, or in any way take in the herbs in any way. So you can use them that way as well. A lot of times I'll take some of these herbs and I will put them in a pouch and put them under my pillow, and I will sleep with them under my pillow to help me when I'm dreaming. And sometimes I meditate before I go to sleep just because I haven't had a lot of time during the day or quiet or a time when there's any kind of silence. And the problem for me with meditation specifically is it's because I work so much of the time. I have my own business. I'm in school. Well, currently not in school, but I am finishing up classes, and I have my kids and my assistants and all of that stuff. It's very difficult for me to find the time to meditate. So a lot of times I'll try to do it right before I go to bed, but even then sometimes it's difficult because my husband likes to come in and turn on the TV. I don't ever get silence. He can't sleep in silence, and I can't sleep unless it's relatively quiet. If the TV is on, I find it very distracting, and it's hard for me to get away when he's home because he always wants to know where I am. He's like up my ass constantly. So I can't ever get just 15 minutes to myself. And a lot of you observed through time over the past few years that we've been doing these videos that someone always calls, texts, writes something in the middle of one of these videos. Well, anyway, so you can wear them in a sachet. You can put them in a sachet. You can use them around like your candles or your focal point for meditation, and just have the energies there and ready to use. So I know I was going somewhere before the dog started acting up with the herbs. I try to do these videos in like a semi-professional kind of organized way, and life happens. So the baneful herbs, the non-baneful herbs, checking with your doctor before ingesting or using anything, ways that are not ingesting that you can use, I've covered that. Other herbs that you can use, ways that you can use them, we'll talk about that in the upcoming Share Spell Week, which is not next week or the week after, it's 3 weeks from this week. So next week we're going to be covering students in teaching craft, and then we have another topic, and then Share Spell. So you may want to organize yourself in terms of which herbs you're using by having maybe a page of these are herbs that are used for this. Oh, that's what I'm saying. Characteristics and why we use some of these herbs. Some of these herbs, such as monkshood and belladonna and mandrake root or mandragora, we know that those herbs have psychotropic type abilities, not necessarily psychotropic in terms of like psychotropic drugs. It's not like hallucinogenic mushrooms, but they do affect you in that way. They affect the nervous system, which is why you should not be ingesting these herbs specifically, and some of them you want to be cautious using even topically. So we know that those herbs carry those kinds of abilities, which is why they're used in this type of work. Now, there are other herbs that kind of have that effect. Mugwort is known to be a relaxing herb. So it's herbs that are things that directly affect the body. Some of the herbs that we use just are known for their psychic ability. It's not necessarily that they affect the body. Now, St. John's wort is one of those herbs that we know has a direct effect on mood. It's a mood lightener. It's an enhancer. And so people use it. They take it as a supplement in capsules and that kind of thing to help relieve such things as depression, things like that, which is why I put it in the coffee. I add it to the coffee because it has a very pleasant, sweet flavor. It's a very aromatic herb. I really like it. But again, things like that, if you're ingesting, you want to be cautious. I use 1 tablespoon to each scoop of, I use 1 tablespoon of St. John's wort to like, not 1 scoop of coffee, but to like 1 thing of coffee that I'm going to make. So I don't ever put a lot in there, but just enough, and you don't even taste it. So I do it without, which is probably kind of bad to admit, but he trusts me to make the coffee, and I need to have him in a good mood because he's unpleasant to live with otherwise. So, there are things that you can do that will enhance, some of these herbs enhance your mood. Some of them are more just because of the positive energies that we know that they carry. So things like cinnamon, cinquefoil, which I believe is related to the rose tree, rose bushes, cinquefoil, hops. Hops actually are known for helping with joint issues, and it's used in beer. So we know that it's things that can affect the body, but that's not particularly why we use it. They just have a positive type of energy known to open the third eye. So when you are using these herbs, your goal is to open your third eye and increase your psychic enhancement for dealing with meditation, to do scrying, you're opening yourself more to that. So some herbs are strictly used for their energies, some are used for their actual physical properties of shifting your levels of consciousness and going into a transcendental state for meditation, or even for scrying. I know a lot of people like to enter a transcendental state when scrying because they feel that that's how they're connecting with spirit. Same thing with doing astral travel. You're dealing directly with spirit, so herbs that are going to shift your level of consciousness are what you're gunning for when you're doing that kind of work. But again, I would just say be cautious when ingesting any of these, because some of these should not be ingested under any circumstances. Aconite, monkshood, don't do it. Wolfsbane, don't do it. If you're into psychedelic mushrooms, I would be real cautious about that one too, because I'm pretty sure some of those things are illegal. Now, I've tried to mention things that are not illegal. I know that there are people who utilize other herbs that in some places are illegal. I personally don't utilize them in that way, but it could be something that you may want to include if it's not illegal in your area. Certainly, I don't want anyone to do anything that might get them in trouble with the law, but everything that I have mentioned here, I believe, is completely legal. So, you can use them to enhance your ability. Mugwort, I've seen people put it in tea. I've seen people apply it topically. I've seen people use it strictly in pouches, sachets, loose incenses, and I've seen people drink it in a tea. I've also seen people smoke it. So you can make your own cigarettes with mugwort and utilize that. That's one way to do it. Now, I will caution against any type of smoking of any sort, simply because smoking of anything, regardless, brings tar into the lungs, which can cause cancer. So, same thing for if you're burning it as a loose incense. You don't want to be standing right over it going, because you just don't want to bring anything into your body that's going to be harmful to you. But use your judgment. We're all adults here, so I certainly hope. So in any case, I hope that this video gives you some idea of herbs and uses, ways you can use them. Like I said, a certain aspect of using some of these herbs I'm going to be covering in 3 weeks when we do our Share spell, so be sure to tune back in for that video. Thank you so very much. I encourage discussion. Please, folks, leave comments, questions, things that you might use. If you have an herb you're specific, that you really go to, it's like your go-to herb for meditation or astral travel or when doing divination, please feel free to share it here, as long as it's not anything that's going to get anybody into trouble. Again, I appreciate your watching. Thank you so much for being our viewers. We love you all, and blessed be.